Good morning, everybody. Tricia Zunker is my very special guest today, Friday, October 16th, 2020. Sorry we had a 5-minute late start there. I had a little bit of a technical issue. Freaking hate Skype. I'm Ben Dryden. You're watching Dryden Wire Live. Today's guest on Meet The Candidate is the Democratic challenger in Wisconsin's 7th Congressional District race, which, holy cow, Tricia, that's coming up fast. What are we, 16th, 3rd, 17 days away? Tricia, good morning. 17 days away.
Hi, good morning, Ben. I know, can you believe I've been running for this seat for over a year, and now we're down to the wire, and I feel like we still need more time. There's more voters to reach.
Yeah, holy cow. So that has been a long process. You know, before we get into that stuff, so most people, I think, by now know who you are, right? I mean, I think that's just, they probably should. And if they don't, I mean, my goodness, the election's in 17 days. But, and you did 15 things you might not know about me, which, of course, we put up on our website, drydenwire.com, yesterday. But for the people who don't know much about you, can you give just a quick little, or however long you want to take, just how you got to where you are now?
Sure, I'll give you the 60-second synopsis. So I was born and raised in Wausau. I grew up in a strong union household. My mom is a longtime member of USW Local 2-224 here in Wausau. And in fact, as a child, I was on the picket lines with my mom and her coworkers when they were fighting to save their health care and save their pensions. And isn't it weird that, not weird, it's sad. 30 years later, these same fights, these same struggles happen for our workers. Anyway, I'm a member of Ho-Chunk Nation, one of the 11 federally recognized tribes here in Wisconsin. I'm a first-generation college graduate. I went to UW-Madison, and I had to work 2 jobs to get myself through school. And then I went to law school, and I practiced law for a number of years, and then I came back to serve the Ho-Chunk Nation with that law degree. I currently serve in my second elected term as Associate Justice on the Ho-Chunk Supreme Court, so I've been a judge for over 7 years now. I'm also a professor at 3 institutions, 1 online law school, 2 online universities. I teach an array of law classes and ethics classes. And I'm school board president of the Wausau School District, and I am a solo parent to a 10-year-old son, recently 10 years old. Just turned 10 not even 2 weeks ago. And I'm running for this seat. It's weird because, I've just stepped into different roles because I saw a way to use my voice to make things better, to produce results. I'm very results oriented. I'm a hard worker, and it means something to me to be able to say, I said I would do this and I did it. I accomplished it. And that's why I'm running for this seat. There's so much that we need to do. I'm not some career politician. I'm just a mom who said, hey, I know I can make a difference, and I'm in it for the right reasons. And that's why I've been running. And so first in the special election, of course, where we came up short in May, but moved the needle over 6 points against 4 times the money. We need campaign finance reform big time. And just got right back on the horse to finish the job on November 3rd. It's been such an honor and a privilege to earn the support of so many people. And like I said, I feel like I need to reach more voters. There just isn't enough time to reach everybody, but I'm trying my best.
Well, I noticed on your 15 things you might not know what be, and some of those things that you just brought up, you had mentioned in there, all the things that you do, and I'm on this, and but I was going to ask you what kind of hobbies do you have. I was surprised to see in there, it kind of sounds like you're in the beginning stages of a hobby with train stuff with your son.
I wouldn't even call it beginning maybe for me.
Sure.
But my son is 10. It was weird. The day after he turned 2, he discovered Thomas the Train. And
Yes.
It's been trains ever since. And he collects model trains now. After I saw he was years in, I thought, okay, this is something that it's going to be something. He's a lifelong train enthusiast. I think that the model trains is kind of an investment. And so a few years ago, Santa Claus brought a brand new assembled model train, and he collects them every year. And that's part of the thing that we do. And back when it was safe to travel, we would try to find new train museums in different states. And I enjoy it too. And I could talk about narrow gauge engines and standard gauge and HO model and O model, all these things I never knew about before my son.
And is it one of those things, though, where that's your son's hobby? Now you have, like my sister, she calls herself a helicopter mom. Like she's a part of the kids are in soccer. I'm all of a sudden now like the soccer coach or something, where now you're taking over the hobby. And the kids are going, well, now I don't like it anymore if mom likes it.
He fully supports anything that I want to do with trains.
Awesome.
We do fun things like in the summer. We say, hey, let's take a bunch of trains outside and create videos. And he's all about
That's awesome.
dumping sand and water and collisions and all this stuff. So I'm definitely in it. He does know what a helicopter mom is, though, because he asked me not to be one, and I'm not one. But I was like, how do you know what that means?
Yeah.
And he made a comment about helicopter kids. I don't know what that would be, but I don't think he's one. That's for sure. He's very independent. He likes his space. He likes to do his things. And he wants mom when he wants mom.
Yeah.
So we've got a pretty good balance over here.
I'm gonna have to Google that one. Helicopter kids. I've never heard of that. Would you mind? So we have a couple people that have just said, good morning and stuff. But there was a question, and most of these things we just kind of chat, and whatever comes up comes up. There was a question here from Doug. It says, "What's your stance on Second Amendment?"
Oh, thanks, Doug. Good morning. This is such a great question because I know I have been framed terribly on this. I support our Second Amendment. I support people being able to protect themselves in their homes. I support our hunters being able to hunt. And, this is the 7th Congressional District. This is a place where you Republicans, Democrats alike support our Second Amendment. I will say, though, as a mom and as a school board president of one of the largest school districts here, I see our children having to do these active shooter drills. And it just seems like we're not addressing real issues when it comes to gun safety. There's some things that we can do that don't infringe on the Second Amendment, such as closing the gun show loophole. Just making sure that there are background checks for these sales, whether it's gun shows or internet sales. And that doesn't infringe on somebody's rights. That's just an administrative process. So I support measures to ensure gun safety so that we can make sure our children and society is protected. But I am certainly a big supporter of our Second Amendment.
Sure. Are there any other things? Oh, I'm getting something there. Are there? You had said the gun show loophole, and you had mentioned there's some other thing. Are there other things that you want to discuss on ways that that you're still supporting the Second Amendment, but be smart about it, kind of a thing?
Well, I think that extending the background check by I think right now we have a 3-day turnaround, and there's been talk about 10 days. I don't know that 10 days is the right number, but a lot of times that we're not getting those background checks back in the 3-day period. So I think that's something that should be examined. And maybe that really comes down to we need more funding for the organization conducting the background checks. Why is it just something where that's piling up, and just add a little bit more workforce there to get that turnaround time faster?
Sure. What are the other questions or the biggest questions that you get asked from when you do, I'm assuming, a lot of Zoom things now, or Skype, whatever you do? What are the most common questions that you're getting? The 3 most frequently asked questions that you get, I wouldn't say pushback on, but questions from either on Republicans, or maybe it's not Republican. It could be, I suppose, a Democrat that was considering voting or not voting for you. What are the 3 big ones?
Well, there's a lot of concern, of course, with COVID-19. Before this pandemic hit, I put thousands upon thousands of miles on my car getting throughout this expansive 26-county congressional district, talking about things like healthcare and coverage for pre-existing conditions and prescription drug costs and the farm crisis and the environment. And then this avoidable pandemic hit, and we shouldn't be this far into it, right? And so I do have a lot of different Zoom calls, a lot of different phone calls, and still talk to people about how they are affected. And it is just totally unacceptable that this many months in, we don't have enough PPE for our frontline workers so that they can stay protected. We don't have enough testing. We know that testing is so critical to halting the spread of contagion if we can identify who the carriers are. We don't have hazard pay for our essential workers. We need to extend unemployment benefits for our workers that have been hurt and lost jobs due to the pandemic. And we need to make sure our small businesses and our family farmers can stay afloat during this time. So these are measures that I support and things that have come up. So I think that I would call that one issue.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, healthcare too. Look at this. The Affordable Care Act is on the chopping block, and I don't think everybody really fully understands how critical this is. If the ACA is overturned, that is 20 million Americans that will lose health coverage. That is 250,000 in Wisconsin, including 23,000 in Wisconsin's 7th Congressional District. And if the ACA is overturned, it's going to make coverage for pre-existing conditions so difficult for people, if not impossible, because it's going to either eliminate the ability for some people with pre-existing conditions to stay protected, or if they have that, pay skyrocketing costs because of that pre-existing condition. Right now, with the Affordable Care Act, somebody can't be discriminated against because of their pre-existing condition. And, half the population has a pre-existing condition. It doesn't make any sense. Everybody should be able to have health care. People need to be healthy before we talk about all these other things. If you don't have your health, what's the point? Right. So that's two issues. So really highlighting the pre-existing conditions. There's sometimes I get just random different questions, but I do think the environment does tend to come out a lot. We have a lot of different needs throughout the 7th Congressional District, but ultimately I hear throughout that people want to ensure the environment is protected, and I am committed to ensuring clean air, clean water, and that our beautiful lands stay protected from corporate greed for generations to come. I mean, it's unfortunate my opponent voted against the Great American Outdoors Act in Congress. It's something I would support. It had huge bipartisan support. But just to give you an example of clean water, for instance, and how I see this come up in different parts of the district, whether it's Langlade County, where the concern was Badger Minerals and their efforts to conduct sulfide mining there. And we know there's no such thing as safe sulfide mining. Or whether it is in the western part of the district, where there are huge concerns about CAFOs. And when I talk about my support for farms, I'm talking about our small and mid-sized family farmers. The CAFOs, they pollute our air, they pollute our ground. They're supposed to self-regulate and self-report, which is just a recipe for disaster. That's something I would be focused on, is making sure we actually have some serious auditing of practices. And even in the northern part of the district, there's proposed Enbridge New Line 5, and we certainly need to ensure that we have the ability to live and use the resources that we require now, but we should look with an eye towards the future and clean energy. And that's not going to happen overnight. This is something that takes 20, 30 years. But we need to start making decisions and laying the groundwork for those things.
Mm-hmm. I want to go back to, you had talked about COVID-19, because let's face it, that's got to be, that's all people really talk about right now. Not all, but that is a huge thing, whether it's in politics or anything else. So we could probably do like an hour show just talking about, COVID-19 and everything that goes with it. But you had mentioned about small businesses, and obviously the 7th Congressional District is made up of a significant amount of small businesses, with the governor's, the 25% capacity gathering order. There were a lot of obviously small businesses in our area that, listen, they're not Democrat, they're not Republican, or maybe they are one of the two, or they just don't care, because there are still a lot of people who just, I really don't care. This is hurting big time. What do you say to them when they go to you and say, I put in all the restrictions, we've done everything that we're supposed to do, our business isn't going to survive this. What do you say to them?
Yeah, so this is something that I'm talking to small business owners, and they are hurting. I can give you an example here in Wausau. There is a family business. It's been in their family for 80 plus years, Dave's Bolodome in Wausau. And the owner is taking all the necessary precautions. He waited to reopen a little bit. He just really thought not just about, he thought about everybody, right? The customers, the staff, making sure everything and everybody was safe. And this 25% capacity makes it very difficult. I think the real difficulty here is the fact that it had to come to this in Wisconsin. We are a hotspot nationally. Yesterday, we had the highest number of COVID cases reported here in Wisconsin, over 3,700. It might even be higher today. We'll see when the numbers come out. And we need everybody to be responsible right now. This is not a Democrat issue or a Republican issue. This is an American health and safety issue. So people need to wear their masks. We know this reduces the spread of contagion. People need to maintain the 6 feet social distancing, wash hands frequently, and please limit travel to only necessary travel until we can get this under control. Because if everybody would do their part, it wouldn't come down to this with the businesses. Maybe we wouldn't even have to have a mask mandate from the governor if everybody just did what they're told. And part of this includes elected officials modeling responsible behavior. And we're not seeing that from some people. We're seeing people campaigning that they're doing indoor events without masks, without social distancing, and that's only further spreading contagion. It's not reducing the spread of contagion. This campaign has been virtual since the pandemic hit many months ago. And it's been such a disappointment because I love getting out and having face-to-face conversations and talking to people and hearing how I can most effectively represent them in Congress. But I know it's not safe to do that right now. So it's been Zoom and phone calls and everything.
Yeah.
But I have my eye on the small businesses and will absolutely advocate for our small businesses in Congress.
So what advice would you give those small business owners? Because I mean, the 7th Congressional District, that's made up of, I don't know, 20, 25 counties or part, or 26, something like that. Well, I mean, our Dryden wire coverage area is really like northwest Wisconsin, so it's a quarter of the 7th Congressional District. So I really don't know a whole lot about Wausau or on the eastern part or northeastern part. But around here, it is just a significant amount of those. And I know that is just the conversation that comes up all the time, whether it's on social media or whether it's in our chats. It doesn't matter. It comes up and just going, well, what do I do? What advice would you give them?
Well, to continue with the safe practices first and foremost, and if I'm so concerned about funding and people needing to stay afloat, and the people that can make that happen are your elected officials. And so I encourage people to reach out to the elected officials. Ask your congressional representative what he's done in Congress to advocate for small businesses in his time there, because I know he's focused on bills about Taiwan and voting against a resolution to condemn QAnon. None of that helps our small businesses here in Wisconsin 7th Congressional District.
Hey, I think we'll ask him next week. I think he's on next week. I'll keep my notes. So the obviously you being a judge and having a history of all this law, I'm sure you've been paying attention to the Amy Coney Barrett situation. Obviously, with an election so close, I'm just curious what your takeaway is on all of this. Should this be happening right now? And what would you say to people who would ask? Let's say you're a Democrat. Most Democrats would say no, it shouldn't be happening. If it was the opposite, where with Republicans in this spot, wouldn't they be saying the same thing? Is this just a political thing?
Well, I think this really highlights how critical presidential elections are, and I don't think enough people listened to that in 2016. And here we are now. Trump could be confirming a third nominee on this court, which is a third of the U.S. Supreme Court. And we should really examine term limits on the Supreme Court, because if she serves as long as Justice Ginsburg, that's 40 years on the court. And so this is in the purview of the Senate, of course, but I think we should follow the 2016 election process, where the Senate Republicans refused to confirm Obama's nominee because they said it was an election year, even though there were 200 plus days until the election. And I think what's fair is fair. What's good for the goose is good for the gander, right? And here we have such a less amount of time. And I think the fact that she's even willing to be the nominee, be appointed under these circumstances is disqualifying. Because I can tell you, I've been a judge for 7 years, and we have to be focused on process before we even get into substantive merits of anything. We have to look at a fair procedure. And anybody that serves in a judicial capacity could look at this and say, this is not a fair procedure. There was a precedent established in 2016 that's now being disregarded. It's unfair. And it's a really unfortunate situation. Yeah. And I'm also concerned because she certainly will vote to overturn the Affordable Care Act. And that will be a fifth vote, and that will be devastating for Americans, devastating for people in Wisconsin to be without health care or to not have coverage because of a pre-existing condition.
Yeah. Well, there's a question here from Kevin I'll put up in a second, but it kind of goes into talking about President. I wanted kind of your opinion as your legal mind regarding the what's happening right now, of course, in Sawyer County, or I think now actually as this morning I put it right before we're doing, there's like a third, now there's a third judge that's presiding over this, all in like 3 days. But the question, where is it here? As a Democrat, do you condone the closings of small businesses by Governor Evers? Well, I don't think that's actually isn't closing the small businesses. So sorry, Is that what it's? Yeah, you condone the. So let's just get into that decision, just from not a political part, but just from your put your law hat on, I guess. Is this something that you would support? Is this something that you support from a legal standpoint? That okay, I support it. I think it's a good idea, but yeah, at the same time, ugh.
Yeah, I think that's a great question because I think it's for the courts to decide right now, and I am not going to interject with a legal opinion because I have to go to the case law on it. I have to go to the actual statute, and that would require many hours of me reviewing it for something that would take away from my focus of the people of Wisconsin's 7th Congressional District. So I think that's where that situation is right now. It's for the courts to decide. But as I said earlier, if people would just follow the practices, it wouldn't have to come to this. And I support our small businesses, and I think that they should get some funding from Congress to stay afloat during this time. Nobody should have to close their doors. We shouldn't have small businesses that have been in the family for 80 plus years having to close their doors because of this pandemic, which is totally avoidable, but we're here because of the failure of Trump's administration.
Yeah. So how does this end? Not the court thing on, I think, on Monday morning, but the COVID situation. From everything that you've looked into, and I'm sure you've researched a lot. You're running for a congressional district. I'm sure you just got teams of people just looking stuff up, right? I don't know. The COVID, obviously, with the way that this is going. The schools obviously in session. We're seeing obviously an increase. It could be for a number of reasons. Who knows? I don't know. Nobody knows because we have nothing to really compare it to, right? But with the way that it's going now, where do you see us in a month from now?
Well, first, Ben, I want to clarify that this is a grassroots campaign. I do not have teams of people. I all the hard work.
What?
I look so much more tired than the last time you saw me because it's been less and less sleep along the way. So there's no teams here.
I was channeling Bruce Willis in Armageddon. We talk about NASA. He's like, "What? You guys are teams of people just thinking stuff up, man.
Right.
That's
it's
it."
Like in a socially distanced room, like just everybody's just on their laptops researching all day. Wow, that'd be amazing.
What?
Not yet. Great. We'll get there someday. Not yet, though.
All right.
So yeah, no. What does this look like? How does this end? Okay. Well, I think people have two choices on November 3rd, or if you vote early or vote by absentee, that choice a little earlier. You have President Trump, who has ignored the science. When the information came to him in January, he did nothing about it. He blew it off. He said it wouldn't be anything. And he has consistently failed to actually address this in a meaningful way. The result is 215,000 American lives lost. This has even touched my own family here in Wausau, as my uncle fell victim to this in August. And that's 215,000 grieving American families. Because of this avoidable pandemic, these deaths are preventable. Well, so that's your one option, right? Or we have Joe Biden, who has a plan, who I think after he is sworn in is not even going to celebrate. He and Kamala Harris are going to get to work. And the first thing they're going to do is address this pandemic and get it so that it's halted, it's under control, making sure there's a vaccine that's safe, making sure that businesses and people, workers have what they need to get through this. And it's just going to be such a difference in approach. So I don't think anything's going to change before the election if Trump doesn't change his behavior. And I say if because I guess anything is possible, but this many people have died. And what does he continue to do? He doesn't take it seriously. He still convenes these super spreader events. Even one here a couple weeks ago in Wausau, there were over 5,000 people, right? No masks, no social distancing. And then wouldn't you know, a week later, we started having skyrocketing COVID-19 cases in this area as a result. So
but can we put that on Trump, though? I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I really don't care what he does when it comes to wearing a mask. Don't wear a mask. It's not a real good look if you don't. I mean, just from the optic standpoint, but
you're right.
It's not going to change my mind at all.
I don't know I think it's more than coincidental. So was each and every case? Probably not. Sure. But there's a lot of people that did go, and it wasn't safe. There's people waiting hours upon hours, shoulder to shoulder, no masks. And the guidelines that we're told in my capacity on school board when we have to make these decisions about what to do is if you are around somebody for 15 minutes, you can, and that's cumulative. So I could be 5 minutes by somebody, 5 minutes later in the day and another 5 minutes, I've had that 15-minute exposure. So looking at those images from those Trump rallies, that's far more than 15 minutes of exposure.
Yeah. I had said when Chris was jail, Barron County Sheriff was on either last week, the week before, I said that's COVID. It's perfect for me, like the safer home, because I don't like being around people anyway. I mean, I would do these remote chats. I mean, we'll probably just never go back to having guests in the studio ever again, because this is great. Like I got sweatpants and flip flops on right now. I really do. Like, this is fantastic. Just go home and go to the studio. This is just great. You had brought up. What's that?
I was gonna say, Ben, you're right though. I mean, we really have seen that there are different things that people can do. Telehealth visits. I think that this is something we really need to focus on, especially here in Wisconsin 7th Congressional District, is making healthcare more affordable. And part of that, of course, is expanding rural broadband access, which is a huge thing. But just telehealth. The fact that we see a lot of workers that can work from home by our employers, making them come in. If we can make things a little bit more convenient for our employees. I mean, we've seen a number of things where this there's some positive takeaways from the remote work and the virtual environment.
Yeah, and we talk, and certainly there are, well, obviously we don't want anyone to die from this. Well, we don't really want anyone to die from any of that stuff, I guess. But the small businesses, there are some, and we've discussed that already, that are struggling. But, there are also a lot of businesses, well, I don't know if a lot's the right word. There are businesses that are doing exceptionally well throughout this as well. And I mean, it's not that, well, okay, it balances out, but there's some victories from this as well. I wouldn't say victories, but there are people that are doing well. Their businesses are growing, and there's other businesses that maybe they should have made changes before that they didn't for whatever reason. We'll do it later, and they were forced to, and now they're seeing actually some success in their businesses as well. So there is more than I think just there are businesses that are hurting, because there are some I think they're doing really well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but it's still a bummer for the ones that aren't. But what are you going to do? You had mentioned
I'm going to advocate for them in Congress. That's what I'm going to
do. You had mentioned, and I'm not saying this sarcastically, it's totally going to come off sarcastically.
Okay.
I haven't looked in the last few days, but the last time I heard or checked, you had referenced Joe Biden had a plan for the COVID. And again, it's not sarcastic. I haven't heard of one. Has he announced his plan?
Well, I don't know if it's on the website, but I mean, they always talk about this. This seems to come up all the time. First of all, ensuring a vaccine and really expediting a vaccine. And there's so many people that are just waiting for this vaccine. The funding that's necessary to help people that are struggling and making sure that gets to the right people, making sure it gets to our family farmers and our small businesses and our workers, and ensuring enough PPE. Why is it that we have frontline workers that don't have protective equipment at this stage in this pandemic? I mean, there's a lot of things that he does talk about, and it's going to be a very different change, because he will take this on head on, listen to the experts, listen to the science, which we need more people in decision-making positions doing as a source of their decision-making. And this pandemic, he's going to get it under control. I mean, other countries have been able to do it through actually taking measures. President Trump has not done this. It's horrifying. I mean, just going back to the number of lives lost, this is not swine flu. This is not influenza. People are dying, and they're dying horrible deaths. People aren't talking about that enough. They're not talking about how at the very end, you can't be by your loved one, right? You have to stay away because they have this virus that's contagious. They're dying alone and on ventilators and can't breathe by the end. And it's horrific. And Americans deserve better. They deserve a leader that values their lives. And President Trump he's not being a leader here.
Why should, if someone hasn't made up their mind yet and they're still thinking about it, why should someone consider voting for you?
That's a great question. Yes. So as I said earlier, I'm not some career politician. I'm just a mom who wants to be effective. I think about what my relatives went through, whether it was my grandma and her siblings selling baskets on the side of the road to make ends meet, or my grandpa, a dairy farmer in rural Marathon County, who had to stop going to school in 6th grade to help with the family farm, but he went back in his late 50s to get his GED. And I think about their hard work and sacrifice, and here I am just 2 generations later, and I have an opportunity to use my voice in a good way. No, I mentioned that I am a first generation college graduate. I don't think college is for everyone. I think we need to come up with trade schools more, and there's some great jobs with, you can get with a certificate or something with a trade school. But when I was growing up, that was the narrative because my parents were young. And when I was born, and they didn't have the same opportunities that I did, I was always told, "You're going to college. You're going to college." And somehow I had to figure out my way to do that. But that was what I was told. So I knew that one first part of the plan. Well, I know what a difference things have made for me, the opportunities that I've had in my life. And I believe that's one of the roles of a representative is to ensure opportunity for your constituents. And so that's one thing I'd be focused on. I believe the other role of the representative is to actually vote in a way that reflects the people you represent. And you can look at my opponent in his short time in Congress, and you can say that is not reflective of the people of Wisconsin's 7th Congressional District. I'm going to work hard for everybody here in Wisconsin 7, whether you vote for me or not. I think that the labeling of Republicans and Democrats gets something gets lost in the way, and I think that there are a lot of voters in this district who vote the candidate. And I am committed to working hard for everybody. I think there is too much division right now in politics. I think there's too much gridlock. I am all about just hard work, being effective, coming back and saying, I said I would do this. I said I would work to expand rural broadband access, and I did it. And I said I would make sure that your pre-existing conditions stay protected, and I did it. And I said I would take on big pharma so that we no longer have to pay these skyrocketing prescription drug costs, and I did it. And there's all these things that I am committed to doing for the people here. Like I said, I'm a hard worker. The work doesn't just come from showing up on the voting floor. And by the way, in my elected positions, I've never missed anything. I've never missed a meeting. I've never missed a vote, because I believe that when you are elected, you show up. You're supposed to be in that seat. And you can look at other people who do not have that kind of voting record. But that's not just where the work is. The work is reaching out to the constituents to see how they're going to be affected. The work is establishing relationships with other people, with your colleagues in Congress, people across the aisle that I can be able to work with, so that I have allies and people that, hey, I can work on that bipartisan support to actually get things done. That's what I'm all about, and I'm going to work hard for people. So I think I'm.
You had brought up. First of all, it's all great thing, and I like what you had mentioned about it's more than just getting elected, because unfortunately, I don't think it's very often, believe it or not, but it does happen, where it's almost like the hard work is just getting elected, and like finally, I got elected. No, actually, that's when the work actually starts, right? But you had mentioned, I think twice now, right at the beginning, and this one too, about that you say that you're not a career politician. I've heard people say that in just about every time it's a candidate saying that as a negative thing against their opponent, essentially. Because I never hear it in a positive way. They never say, I'm a career politician, and so I guess it's a negative connotation to it. What is a career politician to you, and why do you think that is bad?
Well, I think a career politician, I think when we think about that, it's somebody who really forgets who they represent and starts taking money from corporate interests to fund their campaigns, and starts voting in a way that reflects where the money is coming from that funds those campaigns. And this is a grassroots campaign. It is powered by the people. I am accountable to the people and only the people. But I have to say, Ben, if I could just share this, sure. You're so right on about how hard running for a seat like this is, especially in a 26 county congressional district, especially in a pandemic where there's some limitations. And it was just a couple of weeks ago, I was up late one night, and because I'm a solo parent, I have to continue to do all my jobs to pay for my bills in my household. And I'm still school board president, which is a really difficult thing to do right now in a pandemic with virtual learning and what modality of instruction we might or might not switch to, and of course being a solo parent. So I was up really late again one night, and I was thinking, oh my gosh, I've never worked so hard in my life. And then I sat back and I thought for a moment, and I thought about me in high school and how hard I worked, because I knew I was going to go to college, and I knew, how am I going to pay for this? What am I going to do? Oh, if I take all AP courses my senior year advanced placement, I could take those tests and then get the credit, and that would give me college credit. So I did enough classes in high school, morning classes, summer school, where I actually had enough credits to graduate as a junior. And then my senior year was nearly everything advanced placement, except for my advanced French class, which wasn't technically AP. And I had to work because I wanted things. I knew to have a car, I started working. I started working when I was 14, so that I could have a car, so that I could pay for gas, I could pay for my insurance. I had to do all of these things on my own. And so I worked really hard, right? 25 years ago as a high school student. And then I got to college and I had to work to put myself through school along with some scholarships that I had. And I just didn't do one thing because it's always go big or go home with me. I graduated in 4 years with 3 majors and a certificate. And I did that with going to the dean nearly every term to get permission to do course overloads and to do summer school. So I worked really hard then. And then I went to law school and I graduated and I took the hardest bar exam in the country, a 50% pass rate, the California bar exam. It's been listed as one of the top 10 hardest exams in the world at the time when I took it. And I passed that, but I had to do it with 14, 15-hour days studying all day. It's crazy because it was such a tough 3-day exam. And then I was working and my son was born and I had to get another job to pay for the childcare that was with him. During the day, I had to work a job from home. And that was really hard time. So I thought about it and I sat back and I said, it's not that I've never worked so hard in my life. I've been working hard for 25 years. And that's what I'm going to bring to Congress. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to working hard in Congress, working harder than I'm even working now to achieve those results for people here.
On a side note, I also have advanced French training. You can ask my wife about it. She'll tell you all about it.
Ah, oui, c'est parfait.
Yeah. 17 days left. Now what? I mean, 25 years doing all this, working hard, getting to this point. Everything is leading up to this point. You have 17 days left. What are you doing?
What I've been doing every day, reaching out to voters, answering questions, listening, really listening. How can I most effectively represent you in Congress? I have to do a little bit of seeing if I can get contributions too, because like I said, this is a grassroots campaign. I refuse to accept corporate PAC money. We need campaign finance reform, Ben. Oh my gosh, we need to get that corporate money out of politics and make sure that our representatives are accountable to the people and only the people. And I'm one of those people that says, hey, yeah, I practice what I preach. I won't accept that kind of money, even though
if or maybe, I'm sorry, I don't know if it's the right word. When you win on November 3rd, is that something that you would want to address right away, or be one of your top priorities? Is campaign finance?
It's certainly something, and I try to demonstrate here when I talk to people why it matters so much. So prescription drug costs, right? This is something that affects so many people for prescription drugs or medication. But the bottom line is that until we have campaign finance reform, this is going to be really hard because big pharma, they are getting away with overcharging us here in America up to 10 times what they're charging that exact same drug or medication in other countries. Mm-hmm. We shouldn't have senior citizens rationing their medication. We shouldn't, because of the skyrocketing costs. We shouldn't have people who rely on insulin to live, scrambling to try to figure out how they're going to pay for that. I mean, we can do better here in America. Part of that is getting big pharma out of the equation. And that is campaign finance reform. So I'm not going to say campaign finance reform is my first step by any means, but all of these things that we talk about, really, you get to the root of it and you can find that big money in there that's buying seats in Congress. They aren't buying mine, believe me. I am accountable to the people and only the people.
The election, when are you with your team of people? Obviously, most elections, numbers start coming in, 9 o'clock. A lot of things are decided by midnight, some things maybe 2, 3 in the morning. What are you expecting? Are you expecting Wednesday early morning? Are you expecting, no, we're kind of hunkering down, preparing maybe for a Thursday, Friday, Saturday?
We have not even had that conversation. I feel like every day we're just kind of, what's the next immediate thing? Yeah. And I don't know, because this is one of those things where it's out of my control anyway. So to even kind of speculate or think about it, it's not energy that's going to be useful. I like to put my energy where I can be effective. But, I don't think we're going to have it Tuesday night because of the number of absentee ballots. There have been more absentee ballots cast in this election, right, I think, than ever.
And that's what I was kind of referring to, that this is a unique situation where it's not like a normal thing. Have you kind of already been told, or maybe you've seen or talked to some other people that have said, it's going to be a couple of days probably before anybody knows anything?
I know, right? It's gonna feel like such chaos those
Yeah.
days. I don't know.
All right.
I wish that I could just take a little trip after the polls close and just kind of enjoy a few days until those results come in. But I don't know. I guess we'll see. It's gonna be what it's gonna be, Ben.
Yeah, it is what it is, man. Do you have anything planned for that following weekend? So, like, whether it doesn't matter if you win or you lose, what's the one thing? Because as you had mentioned at the very beginning, you've been doing this because the second time going through. So for over a year, you've been doing this. That's a long freaking time to be campaigning.
So long.
What's the first thing you want to do when you have 2 days? I wouldn't say off because it sounds like you never have off. But when you just get a break, what's one of the first things you want to do, regardless of the outcome?
I just want to take my son to do whatever he wants to do, nice. And I want it to be safe. And it might be the Train Museum in Green Bay. If you haven't been to it, it's amazing. Yeah. He could basically be a little tour guide for that place. But it's whatever. He has been such an amazing supporter, and he's the first person I really talked to before I made a decision. And it got long. He went around the district with me sometimes, and the little long days.
He's a helicopter kid, I tell you.
Yeah, I know, right? Can you give me some space, please, Timothy? But nice. He's been amazing, and I'll tell you, when I first talked to him last year about it, he was so supportive because this kid has been with me when I've been running for seats in my tribe. When I knocked 3,500 doors in Wausau and unseated an incumbent, he was with me, 6, 7 years old at the time, knocking those doors, and he understands that there are kids like his classmates that don't have enough food to eat, that they don't have health care or their parents don't have health care, or that they just need an adult, a grown-up who's going to advocate for them. And he knows that I will do that. And so that's why he's been supportive, even though there have been some tough times and some sacrifice. So the first thing I'm doing is whatever that child wants to do, as long as it's safe. I wish we could take a trip, but I don't think it's going to be safe. But it's going to probably be something train oriented.
All right. Well, there is, just for clarification, there is a difference between being an adult and being a grown up. I know that very well, actually, because I'm an adult technically, but I haven't grown up. Tricia, thanks for being here. Blessings to you and your family, and best of luck to you on November 3rd.
Thank you, Ben. I always enjoy our conversation.
It's been a pleasure. You've been watching Meet the Candidate on Dryden Wire Live. I'm Ben Dryden saying thank you all for watching. Until next time, stay safe, keep your social distance, and as always, have a blessed day.